The story begins in the suffocating heat and danger of the Sonoran wilderness. We meet Benito, the son of a disgraced Mexican president who is living a life of constant flight. He is traveling with his father, Don Jose, and a young woman named Dolores whom he loves. They are being hunted by an unseen enemy, and the tension is palpable from the very first pages. The wilderness isn't just a setting here, it feels like a predator. After their dog is killed by a poisoned arrow, the group is left disarmed, starving, and utterly vulnerable. Their journey is meant to be a quest to clear the family name in Guaymas, but it quickly turns into a nightmare. They are ambushed and the violence is sudden and brutal. Captain Miranda, Dolores' father, is killed by an Apache warrior, and Benito himself is wounded by a poisoned shaft. In the chaos, a mysterious stranger appears, kills the warrior, and then vanishes into the brush, leaving Benito to stumble upon a hidden cache of supplies that keeps him from starving. It's a moment of pure survival, where luck and instinct are the only things standing between life and death. As Benito struggles to recover, our perspective shifts to George Frederick Gladsden. He's an English sailor, a restless wanderer who finds himself intervening in a skirmish to save Benito and Dolores from an Apache attack. But Gladsden's heroism comes at a price. He is captured by the Caballeros de la Noche, a gang of Mexican outlaws. It's during his captivity that the central engine of the plot is set in motion. An outlaw named Pepillo, who is dying from a poisoned wound, reveals a secret to Gladsden. He was once a pirate's treasurer. With his final strength, Pepillo uses his own blood to draw a map on Gladsden's skin, showing the location of a sunken treasure of pearls and gold. Gladsden eventually manages to escape the bandits, and he finds himself in an uneasy alliance with a man named Ignacio, an officer in a bandit crew. Their goal is to reach the coast, and this is where the threads of the story begin to weave together. Gladsden secures a vessel called the Berlinilla and prepares to hunt for the treasure. Benito, having recovered his strength and rescued Dolores, arrives at the docks. He isn't just looking for adventure, he has a specific skill that makes him indispensable. He is a master diver, and he offers his services to Gladsden in exchange for protection and passage to the treasure site. As they prepare to sail, they find they aren't the only ones interested in the wealth beneath the waves. They face opposition from several sides, including Dolores' greedy aunt, Doña Maria Josefa, and a dangerous pirate known as Matacite. There is a lot of social maneuvering and tension involving maritime law and deception, but eventually, the group sets sail for the islets where the pearls are hidden. The hunt for the treasure is far from smooth. Once they reach the site, the mission descends into chaos. The traitorous Ignacio arrives, commanding a steamer and turning the expedition into a naval standoff. A violent shipwreck follows, leaving the survivors fighting for their lives in the water against sharks and pirates. It's a frantic, desperate struggle. In the middle of the carnage, Dolores finds herself in a life-or-death confrontation and kills Ignacio. Matacite is presumed dead in the wreckage, and through the violence, the treasure is finally recovered. For Benito and Dolores, the prize is more than just gold, it represents the means to secure their future, and they are married shortly after. However, the story doesn't end with their wedding. The narrative takes a massive shift, moving away from the sea and into the rugged landscapes of the American West. Gladsden, now a man with a different kind of purpose, is traveling through this frontier, accompanied by a seasoned guide named Oregon Oliver. They find themselves caught in a massive, multi-layered conflict. It's a collision of forces. Mexican settlers, Apache warriors, and the Yaqui Indian rebellion are all clashing in a landscape of constant ambush. The tension builds toward a massive siege at the Monte Tesoro hacienda. This isn't a clean, gentlemanly war, it's a primal struggle for territory and survival. Gladsden and Oregon Oliver have to use every bit of tactical ingenuity they have to break the siege. They use unconventional, almost desperate methods, including flaming cattle and makeshift rockets to disrupt the attackers. During the height of this bloody battle, Oregon Oliver is mortally wounded while shielding Gladsden. He dies a hero's death, a moment that underscores the heavy cost of life on the frontier. As the dust settles on the battle, the older generation passes away as well. Don Benito, the patriarch, dies peacefully after the victory is won. The final act of the book brings us back to the theme of blood and retribution. Don Jorge, driven by a need to avenge his family, enters into a final ritualistic duel with the Apache chief, Iron Shirt. He kills the chief, ending that specific cycle of violence. The story concludes with the survivors standing amidst the wreckage of war, contemplating a future that might finally know peace and the possibility of a union between the Gladsden and Mexican families. When we look at the book as a whole, it's easy to see how Gustave Aimard's own life shaped this narrative. He wasn't just an observer, he was a man who had spent time at sea and had travelled through Mexico. You can feel that grit in the way he describes the Sonoran desert and the mechanics of diving for treasure. The wilderness in this book isn't just a backdrop, it's an active antagonist. It's a labyrinth that strips away the character's social standing. In the desert, it doesn't matter that Benito is the son of a president or that Gladsden is an Englishman. The environment cares only if you can find water and avoid a poisoned arrow. There's also a fascinating duality to the wealth in this story. The pearls and gold act as a catalyst for pure destruction. They drive the pirates, the bandits, and the greed of characters like Doña Maria Josefa. They cause wars and shipwrecks. But for the protagonists, that same wealth becomes a tool for social restoration. For Benito, the treasure is what allows him to move from being a hunted fugitive to a man of standing and stability. The treasure is both a curse and a cure. The book also explores the collision of different worlds. You have the structured, somewhat more formal expectations of the English and American characters clashing with the lawless, shifting alliances of the Mexican settlers, the Apache, and the Yaqui. It's a world where the rules of civilization are constantly being rewritten by the immediate needs of survival. Finally, there is the recurring theme of the cycle of vengeance. The book is structured around acts of violence that demand a response. A poisoned arrow leads to an ambush, which leads to a duel, which leads to a massive war. Aimard seems to be suggesting that in this frontier setting, violence is a self-perpetuating loop. Even when the good characters win, they do so through the same brutal methods they are fighting against. By the end, the treasure isn't just the pearls at the bottom of the ocean. While the characters do find physical wealth, the real resolution comes from the human connections forged in the fire of these conflicts. The peace that follows the final battle is hard-won and fragile, but it represents a break in that cycle of violence, allowing the survivors to look toward a future that isn't defined solely by what they have lost, but by what they have built together.